Hey everybody, it's your old pal Chuck, and I'm back with another review. And today we're going to be getting towards the end of our look at the first wave of Transformers Cyberverse, the new 2018-2019 series, and we're going to do a group review of the Ultra Class figures. For those of you who may not be aware, the Ultra Class figures are roughly Voyager scale in size and also do have a gimmick. Um, some of these do feature better articulation than the Warrior class figures, and even have real hands and stuff like that. All the gimmicks are really triggered in the alternate mode, so that's why we're starting off in robot mode. And we're actually going to start off with the first one I got off of eBay. And this is Grimlock. And Grimlock looks like if you remember that review, actually, I guess you wouldn't because it hasn't. Oh, yeah, it's up. The Transformers Authentics Grimlock, the larger scale one. This is heavily based on that with little touches of the animated design in there with some nice nods to the coloring from G1. Now, in terms of articulation, he actually is pretty good. Legs can move forward and back. There is no knee articulation. That's due to the transformation. Ball joint here, at very tight ball joint, I should mention, at the shoulders. And elbows that can bend forward and backwards. But again, that's for transformation. Speaking of which, let's just go ahead and get into the transformation. Start by flipping up the fists, just like so. They do go underneath. Next, what you can do is bring the arms forward, and then what you want to do is bend the elbows down so they're angled towards the back of the figure. This is all stuff, by the way, to get them to stand, you'll fiddle with a little just for adjustments. Next, what you want to do is open up the chest here, and then come around and flip the entire torso around so the dinosaur head and arms are facing forward, and then you'll come back and close the chest, which will lock everything into place. Next, what we're going to do is I guess we can turn the figure around. This is an easy enough way to do it. You want to peg the legs together, and in doing so, you will be pegging the tail together. And then you'll separate the outer panels. You want to rotate them towards you, so that way because if you try to rotate the other way, this thicker part of the leg shell will hit the spikes and not be able to go around. And then you're going to close this up, and this is kind of tricky to show. Right where my finger is, there is a tab, and there is a slot on the inside of the leg, and that's going to basically peg in that way, and then of course the legs will peg together themselves. And if you have everything right, the legs will be hopefully seamless for you, and the head will be covered. Finally, you want to flip the feet forward. There are tabs in the bottom of the feet. One will slot in to the dummy slot right here, but the other one is actually the slot that triggers the gimmick. So let's position Grimlock, get him sitting, and then you'll bring that down slightly, and then you'll press it down all the way. Bring the dino arms down. They're on ball joints. And doing so triggers a loud spring action of flame shooting out of his mouth and little flame fins shooting up along his neck and torso. Not bad at all. I actually think that's kind of fun. As you can see, a little unbalanced here on the legs. Just trying. That's something, again, your mileage may vary. Have to straighten it out, but it does stand. And this is the modern Tyrannosaurus Rex design, where instead of standing upright like Godzilla, it's more of a lateral position because, you know, as the paleontologist pointed out, they have short arms. How are they able to grab food if they were standing upright? To reset, bring that foot back and just go ahead and push the flame back in. The head here is on a little spring, and you can just do it again. As always, if you're storing the figure in dinosaur mode, or I highly recommend, since it does have, this is a spring-loaded gimmick, to store it with the gimmick deployed. You cannot store it with the gimmick deployed in robot mode, but I think the turning of the torso area here disengages the spring, so you don't have to worry about it wearing out over time. So yeah, I think Grimlock is really cool. Very long figure. I mean, not even counting the flame, but that tail really goes out much further than most modern Grimlocks that I can think of. So we'll pause and we'll move on to the next figure. Okay, and here's Bumblebee. Now, Bumblebee was actually the last of the 3 old Wave 1 Ultras I got, and the only one I got off of Amazon. Because by the time Amazon got these figures in stock, not under their real names, by the way, but underneath their, let's be secretive and hide who these characters are under fake names listings, I had already made commitments to get them for Starscream and Grimlock for way more money off of eBay. And yeah, I'm kicking myself because I think in the case of Starscream, it was like a day's difference. But, yeah, well, I'd say to live and learn, but God knows I've made this mistake dozens of times before. Because let's also not forget, I think the day before or the day right after I got Grimlock, basically there was a big Cyberverse review drop, and the powers that be on various Transformer sites have declared the news cycle closed on Cyberverse, even though the show hasn't even debuted yet, and the figures haven't even come close to reaching saturation. Excuse me. I'm just holding back a little bit of a cough there, and it's passing. But don't want to come off as bitter. This is Bumblebee. Now, there is a little bit of an issue with Bumblebee in its robot mode, and that has to do with the little flap here on the back. As you can see, mine is staying down there, and it's like a little spring catch system. Other reviewers have not been so lucky. Even though the only place that shows that flap being down is the back of the packaging, most people feel that it is intended to stay back for robot mode. Like I said, some people do, some people don't. As we get into the transformation, you will see that it doesn't really stay down all that well. In terms of articulation, Bumblebee unfortunately has very little. His legs can only move out to the side, and they're as far as they can go. His arms do not have elbows. It's just a little trick of the coloring and molding, but the arms are on ball joints, but that's mostly for transformation. Speaking of which, let's get into the transformation. Step 1, peg the legs together. Okay, that's not that bad. Step 2, bring the arms and shoulders up. There's various ways you can do that. Find the one that you enjoy. As you see, that little piece will swing forward. Next, what you want to do is bring the arms up and around. Basically, there's a little curvature to the inside of the arm that will cover the screw hole and finish up the stripe. Next, you make sure you pop in the little tab there on the arm. Do that again on this side. And it's actually annoyingly difficult. I shouldn't say annoyingly difficult, but it is a little bit of annoying because, ooh, that didn't sound good. That sounded like plastic cracking. But it's one of those, they don't really give you that much room to work with. But here's Bumblebee in its vehicle mode. It's that modern, nondescript sports car, which we have seen for countless lines and what have you, and all that stuff. It rolls, yay. His action gimmick, you want to grab the spoiler here, and you don't want to grab from the side. You want to try to pull from underneath, because this whole section is going to flip down, and your hands can't get in the way. But very loudly, it will spring out. And I kind of dig this. These are missile launchers with the missiles already launching. This is like some sort of action effect. I think really we're going to find out that Cyberverse is meant to be a more kid-oriented type of War for Cybertron Siege figures, because the Siege figures are coming with blast effects and what have you. This is really cool. I think it just really digs it. And again, swing it back. This is a spring and gear system. Basically, the doors here are on spring hinges that the rocket launchers here are holding down, and they're released on, as maybe you can see inside there, right there, a little geared system, which I think is really cool. And you don't have to worry about storing the figure with the gimmick deployed, because it's, again, gears and what have you. Not my favorite of the Ultras, but I do like the look of the vehicle mode with the gimmick deployed. So we'll pause, and we'll take a look at the third Wave 1 Ultra figure. As if there could be any doubt, the final figure is, of course, Starscream. And let me just say right off the bat, if you're not a fan of the Warrior class figure, this is a little better, but not much. There, again, much like Bumblebee, the only articulation is for the legs is at the hips. And it can't even swing forward, and it's at its furthest extension. There are no knees. They're hollow in the back. That really has to do with transformation. The arms can rotate forward. They are on. They also have elbow joints. The head cannot swivel. The head cannot swivel on any of these figures. I forgot to mention. Interestingly enough, instead of the null rays, which were not molded into the arms, we have these giant turbines, which we will see are, giant missile pods, and we'll get to that, when we get into vehicle mode. Other than that, I really like the look of the figure. It is, again, that G1 with a touch of animated design flair. But to get into the vehicle mode, you want to bring these arms down straight, if you do not have them like that already. Come around the back here. You want to untab this little flap from the back of the nose cone. Bring it up just like so. Next, what you will do is rotate this whole section around, and as you do so, go ahead, bring the legs together. It will just sit there on top of the knees. Next, you can bring that tab section up, and that will sort of slot into place right around the groin area. Next, come around the back here. Flip the tail fins all the way out so they're extended, and then rotate the arms down. There are pegs on the underside here that will peg into the fist holes, and just like that. And then the final step will bring the nose cone around. You want to untab it from the back there. And as you bring it forward, you will lower the head and trigger the firing mechanism for the gimmick, which is incredibly loud. And there you have, the nose cone will lock into place, and the gimmick is deployed. And what the gimmick is Macross missile spam. And this is why this is my favorite Ultra class figure. Looking at his Scout figure, which we'll take a look at in another review, clearly the person who designed the Starscreams for this for Cyberverse has to be a Macross fan, because first we have a Starscream doing a Gerwalk, and now we have the Macross missile spam. This is really cool. I gotta admit, I thought originally when this was shown in the prototype and CAD models that they were going to be more separated and a little more stringy and might be hard to handle, but this is actually really good. You have a center column here that works as your plunger to push it back, but then you have the two sides that fold around. Now the reset, just push down that middle column and slot it back into place. This is another spring gimmick, and there is a trigger mechanism. And that's what I like about all of these. There are defined trigger mechanisms that aren't relying on other parts of the figure to be perfectly molded and installed in place and working right. That if it's off, then like on Optimus Prime, a little bit off, the gimmick doesn't work. This works. And now you'll notice right here on where was the robot mode chest, there's that little like lip of plastic. That's the trigger. You want to slide it back, and that will release the missiles again. Like I said, it is very, very loud. It's like dry firing a Nerf blaster. But this really is a cool figure, and I will make no bones about it. This is my favorite of the three. So we'll pause, and I will give you my final thoughts. I've brought all three figures in so you can get one final look at them. Like I said, Starscream is my favorite. I think my second favorite would be Grimlock, and Grimlock would be the one, if you're only going to buy one figure and you want the most bang for your buck, I would go with Grimlock, because besides having just the flame coming out of the mouth, you do have those spikes coming up. It looks a little more involved and a little more exciting. Bumblebee is okay, but it's just another gimmicked Bumblebee. The car mode looks really cool. Now for some negatives, and a lot of the negatives have to do with the packaging. These figures are basically packaged in robot mode on an open-faced card. As longtime viewers know, I am not a fan of that kind of packaging. It often leads to the figure being damaged in the store or in transit, being shipped through the mail, because you'll have kids come in, and usually these open front packagings have Try Me features. Obviously, since these are packaged in robot mode, there is no Try Me feature, so there's no point to it. But they'll come in, they'll play with the gimmick, they'll, bend something they can't. I'm sure you've all heard the story. I was in Target once, and I saw two brothers just destroy a Stealth Force movie Optimus Prime because they triggered the gimmick of the weapons springing out, and then proceeded to put their hands down to hold the panels in place, and I could just hear the gears popping and snapping and just be stressing and being stripped. But so there was really no need for the open-faced packaging. All of these have come, the cards slightly damaged. I'm not going to blame, in terms of Grimlock and Starscream, the sellers on eBay. That's probably how they found it in the stores. Amazon, on the other hand, decided to ship this in what are their generic Amazon bubble mailers, which really doesn't have a lot of bubble wrap, and it wasn't wrapped in anything. Again, if you're looking to be a mint-on card collector, I strongly recommend going to the store just so you can examine the packaging yourself. Other than that, I really would have hoped they could have maybe work some head swivel or additional articulation below the hips in for a lot of, especially with Starscream and Bumblebee. But I can kind of understand why they couldn't. And also accessories. I mean, would it kill them to give Grimlock a sword? Other than that, these 3 figures are available right now for sale on Amazon.com, along with the Ultimate class figures. I do not think the Warrior class figures are in stock yet as of this recording. So you can pick them up there. The Wave 1 Cyberverse was starting to show up in Targets in the United States. I do not know if that's expanded to any other retailers yet. Fortunately, there's no more Toys R Us, so we can't check there. But definitely, I know a lot of collectors have passed their judgment already on this line, and that's a shame because these are some really fun figures that you can have a good time with. And, passing them up, I think, is doing them a bit of disservice. So, this is your old pal Chuck for Grimlock, Starscream, and Bumblebee. We will see you next time.